All right, a quorum being present, we'll call the meeting to order at 6:01 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, good evening, everybody. I know we saw one another a little bit more this summer than usual, but I hope everybody enjoyed the rest of the month of August and the early part of September. Before we get into the regular agenda, there's just a couple of folks that I'd like to introduce and to welcome. I believe at the last meeting, most folks remember meeting our new Director of Finance and Business, Steve Nemberko, but Steve is also here with us today.
Hi, everyone.
Starts officially October 1st. We're very excited. I also like to welcome our interim principal of the high school, Miss Lee Joseph. Lee has been with the district for many, many years. She was an English teacher, a dean of students, an assistant principal, now our interim principal, but most notably my student council advisor, which is exciting. It's a good thing she's wearing her mask, because I'm sure she's had something to say.
This is all your fault, Lee.
I think the color of her forehead says a lot.
So welcome. And we also have new student reps.
Is that one?
Hi, how are you? Come on down.
Sorry I'm late, I went to the wrong door.
Don't worry about it.
Okay. Oh, I can shift one. This is Lorelei Soper here. Hello. She just came in. And
Hi,
she is
Lorelei.
representing the academic division.
Yep.
And Ana Lima. Ana is a junior in the hospitality program. She's also the president of Skills USA.
Wonderful. Welcome. Glad to have you. All right, the first item on the agenda is approval of minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the June 15th, 2021 regular session minutes.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Mr. Haggerty. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Randall. Discussion? All those in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay? Are there any abstentions? Just Mrs. Panic. Motion carries. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of June 15th, 2021 executive session.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Mr. Haggerty, seconded by Mrs. Barnacle. Are these being held? Discussion? These will be held, they won't be released. All those in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Mrs. Panic? Motion carries. We'll move to the financial report. Mrs. Boyd.
Okay, you have in your packet the summary of fiscal '21. So for most of you, no surprises. We've kind of talked throughout the year on how we were looking, how we were going to end. It's kind of laid out here. I've certainly mentioned a number of times that we were going to have revenue shortfalls. We lay out where the shortfalls were. The general budget surplus due to a number of things we weren't able to do. We did already vote $300,000 of E&D towards the current year budget. So when I back that all out, the year was pretty much a wash, which is good, which is great. You know, the additional turnback is $14,000 more to E&D. So we ended well, all things considered, given all the ups and downs. And then I just laid out there the general activities of your school choice funds, the ins and outs, some of the capital projects, some of your summer PD votes to show that final. So I think that's all that's in here. We are diligently setting up and encumbering your new year, so you'll have your first report next month. I may very well have a very quick budget subcommittee meeting before that, maybe even that night, just before, because we'll need to do some transfers. You remember, we negotiated during the year last year, so the budget's gonna have some lines that have negatives. We're gonna need to move starting balances over, given all of the final negotiations. So we'll do some transfers to start off the new year, and then I think we'll be fine. I think we'll have, the year's already starting off a little bit snug in the salary area. We budgeted pretty lean. We certainly budgeted a few positions from the ESSER funds that we have filled. We do have one or two, we will probably report a summary to budget of additional instructional aid needs here at the high school due to some move-ins and some additional needs. And we've also got an unusual amount of long-term medical leaves in the district that, as you know, they're senior folks who are getting paid their salary while on leave, and we are paying subs, and they are in the teaching areas, so they're qualified subs. When you hit half a year, you're usually paying the equivalent of a bachelor's level 1 salary. So there's a few of those that we've got encumbered, but it kind of leaves us with a pretty lean budget from the salary perspective, but I'm not alarmed yet, and on we go.
Questions for Mrs. Boyd on the financial report? All right, thank you, Deb.
Thank you.
We'll now move to staff reports. Ms. Joseph, since you're the new person, I'll let you decide to go first, or select one of your colleagues to go first.
That's okay, I'll brave it. So it was a very busy summer at the high school. We had summer school and summer camps taking place. We ran the ASOS grant, which is the after-school and out-of-school time grant, where we oversaw 140 students in summer school, including 20 of which saw time with counselors there. In addition to that, we also had a lot of hiring with 26 positions filled. 11 were filled with internal switches and changes, and 15 new staff members to our building. We started with a very busy school year. We started with the new student orientation, which I think Lorelai may touch upon later. It was very successful with almost 265 students of the freshman class and new students present, as well as 317 parents that participated, which was a great turnout. That was student-led by our student leaders. We also had the senior sunrise take place on the first day of school, which I put some photographs there. National Honor Society had its induction originally scheduled for this past Monday being yesterday, which was originally scheduled as a virtual event, but we have switched that to be an in-person event, which we are still in the process of planning to make sure that we can do so accordingly. We have about 350 student athletes participating in fall sports this fall with several of our teams. We're back to Friday night football games. We've seen some very large crowds there. It's been busy. We had our booster club do its mascot casting call, and we have 3 students who are doing the interchangeable roles as our school mascot. And we also have chosen our first seniors of the month, being Erin Parker and Jody Terry. We have already picked our October students of the seniors of the month as well, which we'll announce when we hit October. And we also welcomed staff back with an ice cream truck at the end of the first day. So we've been busy, the classrooms are busy, and we're happy to have students back.
Thank you, Ms. Joseph. Questions for Ms. Joseph? Our first female principal of the high school ever in the history of our district. Congratulations. Mr. Sturgis, I'm going to go to you, but members are very upset they weren't invited to attend your food truck this year.
The whoopie pie wagon? I'm sure we might have a few down in the freezer, I'm not sure. And that was a huge hit with the kids too. So it's actually the first event for our current 8th graders. We're desperately trying not to forget that they lost out on their 7th grade fun stuff. So things that would have typically been 7th grade specific, we're including both grades. We'll do that throughout the year. It started with last year in June when we had our 8th grade field day where we included the 7th grade as well to make it school-wide instead of grade specific as kind of promotional activity. So that's been a good thing too for even the whoopie pie wagon as like minor of a thing it is. It was the first real school-wide activity that we did since this whole thing started. It was awesome. Kids were outside, lying all the way around the softball field, itching to having to keep kids from stealing seconds. So then they got to just play outside, have some free time for middle school age kids. Is really what they want from us. But I guess there's more than that to the start of the school year at the middle school. But we did have summer school this year where we had 40 students attend on a regular basis. We had almost all 40 kids at all 4 weeks of school. with 4-day sessions, which is pretty impressive. Not all were required students to be there. Most were actually kids who were there just for extra help, to give them the needs that they had on personal level. So it was awesome to have that many kids in school for the entire month of July. Back to get to this year, show choir started already. Last Friday we had our tryouts, and we already have the show choir squad set to start into regular practices this Friday. We had 45 and 44 kids try out for the boys and girls soccer teams, which is the most since I've been here. Amount of kids that ever try out for at least one specific team. Usually boys basketball gets around 45, but for boys and girls have that many tryouts. It was awesome to see. Field hockey, we're happy we have enough for a team. It was great. And so actually, some girls who didn't make the soccer team picked up field hockey and a little bit went to cross country as well. So we had a lot of kids involved, which is all that really matters. And they seem happy to be involved, which is great. And then one important thing I mentioned, the Whoopie Pie Wagon Student Council is also tying into the Whoopie Pie Wagon. The purpose of having it here is to start with Hello Week. That's with the Sandy Hook organization that we're associated with. The Sandy Hook organization, if you remember, you guys accepted a donation from them last year. They sent me an email today with a video directly from the organizers of the foundation, thanking us specifically because our student council, Save Promise Club, is doing far more than most schools. Through the pandemic, our student council kids kept this thing alive, kept it going, and we're already into week 3 of this year, and we have an entire week of spirit stuff going on in the junior high right now. And amazingly, 12, 13, and 14-year-olds still participate in these kinds of wearing miscolored socks and different shoes, and they still do it. So a lot of fun stuff going around. And then the big picture things that you saw coming up, parking lot, it looks beautiful out there. Sidewalk up to the school is in place. The outside of the campus looks really nice with the window project. Pretty much done, fixing a few of the last few problems, and we're moving along with some of our bigger projects around here. So all in all, we're off to a good start here.
Thank you, Mr. Sturgis. Questions for Mr. Sturgis? Mr. Wood?
So the first thing is the Skills Capital grant is pretty exciting. It brings in, it's going to replace almost every piece of equipment in the Cornerstone Cafe kitchen, with the exception of, I think, 3 items which are relatively new. It also is going to open up within the grant the opportunity for evening cooking classes going down the road, and it also strengthens our articulation agreement with Holyoke Community College. So there's going to be some back and forth with visits to Holyoke Community College throughout the year. So that's a really exciting. It was toned down. Not everybody was invited to the ceremony because of numbers, so it was kind of interesting, and it was just bizarre, really. But they gave me the check, so that's all that matters. And it's just fun to have, and the teachers are like kids in a candy store. Every time the new piece of equipment comes in, they got to crack open the boxes and see what to do. So that's kind of interesting. I think the highlight of my report is the gold medal that Connor got. It's an amazing achievement for this young man and his teachers. As soon as Connor made it to States, he was after school almost every day working with his teachers. And they were guiding him through the years of understanding what the projects are at Skills USA. That was an in-person event in Marlboro. Well, actually, his was at Blackstone. And when he won the gold, that was huge. Then it came time for the second part, which was now the Nationals, which was virtual. It was a very, very hectic pages of directions like this. It was just crazy to go through. Mr. Lamothe had to stand there and watch him to make sure he didn't cheat. I don't know how you would. And he was live streamed to the judges for the entire time of his work. And I was running late from a meeting in Franklin. I was calling Mr. Segan, and I said, I'm going to miss it. And fortunately, they ran late, because when you got to watch it, they picked the 9 top people in the country, and then virtually the bronze. And never did Mr. Segan, Mr. Merrill, myself have a doubt that Connor, there was just something about him and his presence and how he worked. And what was really cool was we finally got the medals, and it timed right in perfectly with our freshman exploratory assembly. And I said, how better to really inspire these kids. So Connor came in, and I didn't show him anything yet. He's in my office, and I said, if you want to talk to the kids, and I said, you don't have to, it's okay. And he got his medal, and he said, can I talk to them? And he could not have been more inspiring. He is just an incredibly classy kid who epitomizes work ethic, professionalism, all of those soft skills in addition to all of those hard skills of being a great carpenter. He is working full-time, and his employer loves him. He is just an outstanding kid. So I think we should all be really proud he has represented Tantasqua, the district, the school, the teachers, and his program beautifully.
That's great, thanks, Mark. Questions for Mr. Wood?
Props on Liskey.
Thank you, principals. All right, we'll move to committee reports. We only have 3 this evening. We did circulate at the beginning of the meeting the FY22 subcommittee assignments. Appreciate many of you, not everyone, but many of you for advising on your top 3, as is standing practice. Junior members, so those that are within their first year of the committee, receive 1 assignment. You know, the expectation is there's a fair amount to ramp up, so they receive 1 assignment. Senior members receive 2. I'm lucky, I always get 3. And we ensured that everybody received at least 1 of their top 2, and in many cases, we were able to get everybody their top 1 and 2, but not all the time.
Just a word on this.
Yes.
You spelled Sheila Noyes Miller's name wrong, so I think you better get that changed.
I think she's not here.
Yeah, I know.
She's not here.
I see that.
Okay.
And I can't blame anyone, I actually did it, so I own that. And we did incorporate the Superintendent Evaluation and Goals Subcommittee. Again, that is the TRSD members appointed by me, and then the chairs of the elementary either serve in that capacity or their designee. So you'll see in some cases the chairs, and in some cases their designee. We will be reaching out. Obviously, your first subcommittee meeting is when you'll elect your respective subcommittee chairs. And so we'll want to get some meetings on the books over the next month or so to be able to at least get reorgs to occur. Some have actually already done that, just based upon the need to meet earlier, like negotiations. But others obviously haven't had a meeting since the spring, so we'll be in touch on that. All right, that brings us to our student representatives. Good evening and welcome. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. So my name is Lorelei. I'm a senior over at Tantasqua, and I'm actually on our student council's executive board. I'm the vice president this year, and I'm also involved in NHS and a bunch of other different clubs at the school. So student council has started off our year off really strong. As Ms. Joseph mentioned, we hosted our new student orientation in August to welcome the freshmen to the high school. And we took them through different workshops, tours, schedules, answered questions, helped them with anything that they might have questions about. And it was really just to make connections with other upperclassmen and to hopefully try to ease the transition to the high school as best we can, because we all know that it can be a little stressful. The executive board also decorated for the first day of school by writing positive affirmations on the school windows with window markers. And we also set up balloons in the foyer. And this was hopefully just to start off the year in a positive manner and to kick things off. Our first in-person meeting for student council went very well. We have about 150 members from all 4 grades this year. At our first meeting, we did a workshop called Leading with Lollipops, which was to showcase how small acts of kindness can go a long way in the long run, even if you don't see that. We're also starting our committees tonight. Actually, they're doing them over there as we speak, where members of our council are separated into different committees, such as major dance, school service, etc. And we work on projects related to those things. So tonight, our major events committee will be discussing our homecoming harvest dance which will be held on October 23rd. The dance will be held on the tennis courts in order to keep students safe and without any indoor restraints. We're planning to have food, music, games, and just to overall have a good time after a couple years of not having dances. Our theme will be shown through different decorations and spirit days. Lots of fall fun going on over there. The e-board and administration have been collaborating and working really hard to make this happen. Thank you, Ms. Joseph and Mr. Wood. And we're super excited. It may not look the same as previous years, but we're hoping to have a good turnout and that everyone has a good time. We also started our Shack Up at different sporting events. We've done, so far, the past 2 home football games in collaboration with Chef Pop in the culinary program. Pretty soon we'll be starting to serve limited hot food items along with pre-packaged items. It's just a great way to serve our community and to give back to people and to also raise money and fundraise for our council. National Honor Society, as Ms. Joseph also mentioned, was scheduled to have their induction. However, they're rescheduling it to hopefully be an in-person event. And at our first meeting, we received our community service sheets and talked about goals for the upcoming school year. And overall, we just have a lot of exciting things planned for this upcoming months. And we just kind of want to promote fun and community after a couple long, rough years. I'm super excited to see how things plan out. Thank you.
Thank you, Lorelei. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for having me tonight. My name's Anna. I'm a junior at the Tantasqua Regional High School. I'm a technical student in the hospitality program this year. As Mr. Wood mentioned, I'm president of Skills USA, and I'm really proud to be representing Tantasqua in the hospitality program there. Most of our techs right now are just getting started in the early months of school, focusing on necessary theory work and any certifications before starting any projects. However, there are techs beginning some really exciting and unique activities in their own shops. Allied Health is focusing on CPR and BLS, basic life services, and Alzheimer's training with their seniors, and their clinicals begin October 18th. Health students right now are focusing and bringing awareness to Alzheimer's, as this is their first set of patients that they're going to be encountering in clinical. In addition, they'll be participating in Worcester's Alzheimer's Walk, as well as to continue to bring awareness to the cause. In carpentry, the main focus every year is the senior houses. However, they are waiting for a foundation right now to be poured. In the meantime, they're currently working with state and local police to create kennels and houses for their canine units. In electrical, students are working with new IT network in addition to working with the Sturbridge Public Works Department and helping wherever they need. Machining, the sophomores are beginning to learn how to mass produce products. This is something they'll face in their work experience later on. Their product this year is pizza cutters and focusing on making these circle round shapes and then, eventually blading them. Business Tech has opened the school store for in-person purchasing between lunches, and they're expanding the use of the Square program for the store. Hospitality and culinary arts students are working on ServSafe certifications to understand how to safely and properly function in the school's restaurant this year. The Cornerstone has a lot of, as Mr. Wood mentioned, a lot of new machines and a chocolate machine and all this really fun stuff to work with. Right now we're focusing on the new point of sale system, and this is the Square. It's a system the students can easily work with. It modernizes and simplifies invoicing, sales, how to see business reports, things like that. IT continues to take on any IT tickets and issues as they arise working throughout the school. And they're also working with hospitality and culinary arts right now to set up our printers and help us connect in the kitchen to get tickets printing on both sides via Bluetooth. So I want to thank you guys for your time and listening to the text. Thank you.
Any questions for our student representatives? Any questions for us?
I don't think so.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Nice job, guys.
Brings us to our Bylaw and Policy Committee report. Speaking on behalf of Mrs. Fitzgerald, Mr. Haggerty.
Thank you. The Bylaw and Policy Committee met on September 2nd via Zoom. We had a very productive meeting. We are bringing to you tonight a full replacement of a policy, JFE3 technical division admissions. This is required, a required revision as a result of DESI action throughout the state. And I'm going to let Mr. Wood speak more specifically to it. You have in your packets a copy of the old policy and the new policy, which we're recommending replace it. And Mark, I don't know if you want to chime in at this point?
Okay, thank you. So the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has really overhauled admissions policy for vocational schools. The genesis of the change was that there are a number of schools that the department has looked at over time and said, you know, your makeup of your student population doesn't reflect your catchment area. There are some schools that have 800 applicants for 300 slots. So you could have 6 schools where totally identified. The department would love for everybody to go to a lottery like a charter school does. Some schools are fighting it. When I kind of did an analysis of how our system works, to move that to that lottery makes sense. Basically, in the old days, you looked at kids' grades, their discipline, their attendance, the counselor recommendation. And what the department said is those can really bias a decision on getting kids into school. And so we will be taking that out. So we're going to replace the policy we had before, which was based on DESI guidelines, and we're really going to a lottery which is very similar to the lottery that we use for school choice, where every applicant will be numbered as it goes through. Basically, the process we have here is we receive the applications from our in-district kids first. They are accepted, and very rarely is an in-district kid not accepted, and that may be a situation of the kid wants to come to tech, but cognitively he, she, or they really wouldn't be able to be successful because of the cognitive impairment, and therefore they're never going to pass OSHA, they're never going to pass safety tests. So that is probably one kid every 2 or 3 years. What we then look at is if we have, let's say, 150 kids in the freshman class, we have 120 students from in-district, that means now we have 30 kids from out-of-district that can come, and that process would be the same. As they come in arbitrarily, they're just all going to be given a number, and then we will draw the numbers, and those 30 slots we filled that way. On the application itself, we only had to add language. We actually took out the entire 3rd page, which is basically the scoring sheet, which we're no longer using that criteria, and we had to add non-binary and basically some language that if you are a student who you are on an IEP and your family needs some help to go through the process, we're here to do that. So basically, as Mr. Harrigan said, this really kind of just folds into what DESI wants. It takes away the criteria-based acceptance and builds it all into a lottery.
And I apologize, the current one did not make it in your packet.
I didn't know.
What you have, just at least the copy I have. If you're struggling looking, what's in here is the complete new one, but most of it is the same language except for the criteria that used to exist and is now the lottery-based language.
And if I could just add 2 other parts. First of all, this will now, once you've accepted it, we have to annually send our copy of our admissions policy to DESI. It's in October, but Dr. Nosek has signed a document that will give us an extension so we can get past the 1st and 2nd reading in a timely fashion with the committee. Also, every year, annually, we are going to have to bring the policy just for review by the committee, and that is just in accordance with the new regulation. But it's basically a total rewrite, takes all of the old stuff out and just makes it much clearer.
Okay, so the
Mr. Chairman, we'd make that motion.
So the recommendation of the Bylaw and Policy Committee is to approve policy JFE-3 on first reading.
So,
It's a recommendation, so it doesn't require a second. Is there any discussion? Yeah.
I have a question for Mr. Wood. I noticed that our information sessions or other districts, are you doing that currently, or is that a new?
That is currently in our admissions policy that's remaining.
Okay.
Last year, obviously, it was virtual, and at some level, that actually was better because people who couldn't come to the
Right.
meeting, so we will do that, but obviously, I'm going to have to redo it because it talks about the old policy, so we're going to have to redo it. But yes, we definitely do that. I'm trying to remember, I want to say it's like November 13th or 16th. The 8th grade comes over to us for the tours, and then the next night we do parent information night for everybody.
Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, which is approval of JFE-3 on first reading, will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously.
Just a couple of other things. The Bylaw and Policy Committee has been working with a new school committee orientation program. One of the things, and I think Michelle has mentioned this previously, is that when a new member comes on board, other than going to the MASC orientation, which is lengthy and extremely comprehensive, we felt very strongly that we needed to have some sort of a mini orientation session for new members so that they basically understand how the committee operates and they don't, fumble through the first few months of membership. So that a draft of those documents should be coming to you shortly. I think we're supposed to review them in our next meeting in a week or so. So that's some good news. And lastly, the subcommittee also voted to move that we suspend policy EBCFA, the face mask policy, and to follow the latest DESE requirements regarding masking.
All right. So there's a recommendation by the Bylaw and Policy Committee moved to the floor, which is a suspension of EBCFA, which is the current policy on the books, which also it speaks about a number of things that are no longer authorized or approved by DESE, like remote learning and a number of other components. DESE has offered guidance. That guidance obviously is what we'll follow, and so the committee is recommending a suspension of the current policy. Legal counsel did review. They recommended the word suspend on purpose. Should things ultimately change down the road and there's a need to alter that policy and then reinstitute it, having it suspended as opposed to rescinding it would allow us to expedite that much faster. Any discussion? Seeing none, the chair will call for a vote. All those in favor of the suspension of policy EBCFA will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Ayes have it, motion carries.
Okay, and Mr. Chair, our committee will be meeting again on October 7th.
Thank you, Mr. Haggerty. And that brings us to negotiations. Mrs. Randall.
We received a request from Unit A to negotiate over a change in working conditions, and we are currently negotiating.
Thank you, Mrs. Randall. Brings us to communications. There were a couple of family letters in your packet. I know Dr. Nozick handed out another one from September 15th. And so that's an FYI. I know some folks probably received these already, but some do not. So any questions on those letters? Thank you for doing that, Dr. Nozick.
Sure.
And that brings us to our superintendent's report. So, Dr.
Thank
Nozick,
you.
all yours.
Thank you. So I also, as the principal said, want to thank everybody for a great opening. A lot happened over the summer, lots of cleaning, projects, getting ready for the school year. There's always staff in and out, and just really appreciate everybody's hard work to get us open and to have a great start to the school year. So very, very appreciative of that. Everyone's really done a tremendous job adapting to the new environment, and I would be remiss if I didn't always thank our school nurses as well for really just having to pivot and adapt on a regular basis, as we all do, all of our teachers, faculty, administrators, custodian, everybody, to any new guidance that we receive, but they're really the forefront, especially around the medical or health-related issues, so thank you. School resource officer, Officer Dana, has transitioned off of that position in lieu of just moving his scheduling and time with the Sturbridge Police Department. So we are happy to welcome Officer Nick Martirosian. He is at training this week, but I would like to invite him to come to a future meeting. I think he's fit in really quite well and done a really good job so far. So we will miss Officer Dana. He really did a wonderful job, especially as the first full-time one here at Tantasqua in many years. So really got the program back up and running. So Officer Martirosian will be here at a future meeting. Any updated DESI information, I just want to remind you, I do try to send that information to you electronically. If there is a family letter that accompanies it, I do try to forward that as well, often communicating, again, any changes that we have. And that is one of the September 15th letter around the reporting of positive COVID cases. Initially, the department was not collecting that data, and then I think sometimes right at the end of August, they notified us that we would be needing to report that. We were planning, again, just as we did last year, to keep our own data, so there was no plan to not do that. In response to a lot of feedback we received last year from families around receiving, frankly, too many letters and the value of those being diminished, because by the end of the year, or certainly actually probably by the fall, families knew if their child was a close contact or there was any interaction with their nursing office that they are personally communicated to. That is clearly going to be maintained. So what we're doing is we're just gonna post, as we did last year, the positive cases weekly on our website. That is the same data that our nurses report to the Department of Education. So the first week, the family letter indicates weekly and starting tomorrow, and that was because there could have been potential confusion. DESI is doing a week at a time, except the first week where it was 3 days, and it just seemed to complicate with more language. So I just said next week, but if you went to our website today, you would see indeed that we posted the September 12th through the 15th, which is what the department was capturing for that data. And then we report to them, and they put out their own public tracking information, but we will certainly take care of that. We've also had all of our testing up and running. It took a couple of weeks. We were waiting on a waiver from the state around implementing the rapid tests in schools. So with all the paperwork squared away and setting up accounts for the school, we're able to do that. So we are participating with signed permission forms in the pool testing, offering the test and stay program, which is one of the letters as well, where if you're considered a close contact and you're asymptomatic, you can stay. If the close contact happened at school, you can stay and participate in this test and stay program. So looking forward, to maintaining the testing, and then also losing track of the third testing option. So, but participating in everything that is offered through this the state. Yeah. So looking forward to just again working with our nurses and our communities around that. There was an MCAS press release put out today that I will forward you all tomorrow if you didn't see it on the news. There was the meta-analysis or the state level report that talked about how the state scores were as compared to 2019. If you recall, we did not give the MCAS in spring of 20 during the start of COVID and the pandemic. So there will be no accountability. You're used to that kind of seeing that accountability chart. That will not happen this year simply due to the fact that you're not comparing and you're not making an annual comparison. And the state is advocating that we use the data for looking for gaps that children may have experienced due to the pandemic. We do a lot of our own benchmark assessment, a lot of our standardized assessing that we do annually anyways, so we feel like we do have a good understanding, and we always had a system, but this will be another layer of data. And also the commissioner at the Board of Ed was looking to extend some regulations around the competency determination to include one more graduating class. And that's really recognizing the instability of instruction, frankly, for students over the last 2 years. It's now the third academic year that's been impacted. So we will keep you posted on any of that. Parent reports are due to be released and go home, I think September 30th. So as always, we'll do our presentation and we'll share that information with you all once we're able to take a look at that and come over that. And I think that might be it, with the exception of, I did want to update you regarding testing and vaccines, that we did reach out. We are working on trying to get a vaccine availability mobile unit to come out and see if we could stand up a vaccine unit here for our students. But the state has offered a number of things, and then it does take a little bit of, there's a bit of lag time with regard to actually making it happen. But you always want to be in the queue to take that resource if it's possible. School committee retreat update, and Deb can certainly chime in. You probably heard Lorelei talking about homecoming week, which that date may have rung a bell, but it is October 23rd. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and adapt to not taking over campus or ruining homecoming. So we will not be at the high school. We do plan on still having the retreat. Tony Bent is still going to be involved, but we're going to move it to the junior high and likely not interrupt the students who will have games that day and then the dance, and have our Chartwell's folks just prepare lunch. So we do want to keep the 23rd. We felt like we put that date out, and to try and reschedule at this point might be a bit of a challenge. So we're just going to kind of relocate and adapt to homecoming, which we apologize. I don't even think we thought about that when we were looking for a date in the fall. So I don't know, do you have anything to add?
No, I wanted to take a page from Lorelei's report and say we would have food, music, and games, but I'm not positive how much music and games we'll squeeze in. We'll try some, but we will have food. So yeah, we'll be here between this room and the cafeteria. We do have Tony Bent, for those of you who were here before. He's coming back for a, command second performance. He was great. He really energized us, kicked us off 2 years ago, and then we stalled. So he will come back and sort of give us a refresher, and then, help us move forward, talk a little bit about school committee challenges, and maybe springboard the orientation process, because I think on that day we'll also share the bylaw and policies, hopefully finished product on new member orientation packet for you folks to take a peek at. And then we'll have some conversations on the next steps in strategic planning. It's unsure yet whether we will use that time to present the district improvement plan that we have not had the time to do with you yet. We know we're not going to get you all until 5 o'clock, but if we can get you all until 2:30, we can have some food and have a little bit after that. And I'll just kind of keep sending out reminders for folks to put that in, but we have Tony locked in for the morning, so I think that'll be a good.
So what time does it start?
We're looking at sort of an 8:30 start, maybe an 8 o'clock, sort of continental breakfast setup, and Tony's, working.
8:30. Not 8.
Well, you can write in at 8:29, but some of us will be here at 8. And then, Tony, we needed to peel back his agenda. He said, can I have it till noon? So, we were kind of maybe 12:45 by then. 11:45 folks are ready to eat. But he's got a number of things he's working on, so I think he's really looking forward to coming back and seeing some of you again. He loved our district, loved that day, so good guy to have come back, and then we'll go from there.
And he's published, so we'll share
Yeah.
some of his publications with folks so you can get a sense of kind of where he comes from and how he ultimately approaches this. But I know everybody really enjoyed having him facilitate, so back by popular demand.
Yep.
Good. Thank you both. No unfinished business. We tackled new business. You do have the August 25th, 2021, DESI mask requirement memo in your packet. Everything, I think, is pretty spelled out and clear as it relates to time and learning. Not in the packet, but I have some copies up here. There was a great article in the Boston Globe last week that just talks about, you know, how we keep schools safe and really walks through kind of the important things that school districts should be doing. And of course, you'll see in the article, we are and have been doing that, you know, since the beginning of the pandemic. And I think the article does a nice job of kind of calling attention to those things, but also should make us feel good and reinforce the great things that we're doing throughout our district. Brings us to public access. Open forum. Mr. Haggerty?
Yeah, thank you, Mike. I just wanted to speak very briefly with the school committee about an activity of which I'm involved. The Massachusetts Association of School Committees, of which we are all members, has a variety of committees. And I have had the opportunity for the last 2 years to serve on the Sportsmanship, Ethics, and Integrity Committee. Last year, we didn't do a heck of a lot. It was very difficult to meet, like everything else. One of the major events, there's a couple of things that the committee does, including a Sportsmanship Summit that usually in the last 2 years has been held at Gillette Stadium for student athletes and coaches, as well as some contests. And they're constantly looking at ways to improve sportsmanship in our high schools here in the Commonwealth. We had a meeting last week, and we began discussing a draft of a policy that they're hoping to put in that was developed jointly by the Sportsmanship Committee and another one of its committees. Very concerned about discrimination on the fields, racial slurs and things of that nature. My problem in representing my representation is the School Committees Association. And it's very difficult to get a lot of input from all the school committees in the state. So what I'm hoping to do is use you guys as a sounding board, and I hope that I would like to forward that policy to you electronically, just have you look at it, and if you have any thoughts with regard to it, please email me or text me, and then I can take that back and provide some input, even if it's primarily coming from the Tantasqua Regional School Committee. I sort of enjoy being on this committee. It was initially formed back when a period of time when I was a high school principal, and at that time I was asked by the Superintendent's Association to represent them on the committee. Loved it, and then when I retired some 17 years ago, had to leave the committee, and was delighted to be asked to rejoin the committee as the school committee representative. So anyways, I just wanted to inform you. And also I might add that you probably get a communication from the School Committee Association via your membership. And they're always looking for members for their committees. And there's a lot of committees that the MASC has, as well as the MIA, which require or they expect to have a school committee representative. So if you have any motivation or interest in getting involved beyond Tantasqua, please take a look at that. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haggerty. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Mrs. Panic,
Seconded.
seconded by Mr. Haggerty. Father-daughter duo. All those in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
See you next month. Thanks, everyone. If anyone wants a copy of that article, I have it here.